Still two sides. Even with the company, Motown was great triumph. It was also tragedy for a lot of people.
They say that in every gift, there's a blessing and a curse. And Berry Gordy's Motown is the perfect embodiment of this saying.
You know, I think that Berry Gordy was probably like a general. He was the father figure of the company, but he was also a general. He was in a war. And in any war, there are casualties, unfortunately.
On the road to creating the legacy that would become the sound of young America, much like going to war, there were bound to be victors.
Stevie Wonder.
The Temptations were gods.
You talk about Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
You talk about Diana Ross.
Yeah.
Supremes, Marvin Gaye,
Gladys Knight.
And victims.
The drinking that forced Florence out of the group has only worsened, and after an abortive attempt at a solo career, she winds up on welfare.
Not everyone was going to be fully satisfied, and not every life was going to turn out great.
This is Detroit's most recent memory of David Ruffin, in court, facing cocaine charges, defended as a broken drug addict so out of control that court orders, friends, not even the threat of jail could keep him in a drug treatment program.
And so, as expected, all fingers pointed back to the big man himself.
Many of your former artists have complained. Some of them have written books. And what they said primarily is that they had no control over their money. They didn't have agents. They didn't have accountants. That they weren't paid what they were worth. And that they never knew any of this. Therefore, there was a lot of money they didn't get.
Sparring ready. Let the tussles begin. Or is it blame games?
Berry Gordy is a man I do not know. I only met him about 3 times. I really don't know anything about him. I just know he'll be taking care of me.
This is very deep. I really believe Motown or somebody in the industry is holding me back.
Well, the problem was that everybody trusted him, you know, and he was like the father, and we were the father and mother image, okay? So, you know, everybody expected to be taken care of in the final analysis, including myself.
By had this company being a family and myself being a very feminine female, I took it real hard and I felt like, wow, you hurt me and I think I've been used or whatever, and I'm going somewhere else.
Mary would also file a lawsuit against Motown and its new owners at Universal, claiming the company owed her money.
The one thing that I was very, very careful about was paying everybody what they had coming.
So today, 20 or 30 years later, it's kind of looking back and saying, well, maybe I should have had more and maybe it should have been different. And
I'm saying that because of what we did at Motown, they have the opportunity today to go out and write books, to perform, and to be listened to and to be heard.
Was Berry Gordy as shady as they say?
These artists that have complained and so forth, year after year, or whenever their contracts are up, they signed again. If you're not getting paid, you don't keep signing your contract because you have a chance to go and be free and to go wherever you want to do. But they stayed with me for 15, 20 years, you know.
Or was he just a shrewd businessman trying to protect his empire?
It cost us thousands and thousands of dollars before they became stars. I mean, we made tremendous investments in all of the artists. Some made it, some didn't. But we continued to invest. Those that didn't make it, we continued to support them until they did. And some never made it.
Berry Gordy said, this is my dream. I'm going for it. You want to come aboard? You want to come aboard? Yes, we want to come aboard, but everyone needs to start taking care of themselves so we can no longer be victims.
From alleged threats against those who dared to question the system.
Berry told me one time, you're going to need the money when you win it. I'm going to keep you in court that long. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
To rumors of shady ties with the mob.
One of the stories when I came to Motown was that the mafia owned Motown, and it kind of lent to the folklore of it.
He's been run by the mafia. You see that guy in there? He can't even leave Detroit.
And allegations of mistreating, silencing, or discarding those who didn't fall in line with his rules. These are the tragic and questionable cases tied to the label and the bizarre, controversial theories surrounding them.
Please welcome the founder of Motown, the legend himself, Mr. Berry Gordy Jr.
Berry was a genius, a pioneer, and a visionary who, through his assembly line approach, had discovered the secret sauce for creating stars.
It was a crazy dream, you know, trying to make
an artist come in one door, not knowing out another door, a brand new star. You're just like the auto factory.
He literally took kids off the streets and transformed them into polished professional artists.
You had a way of seeing talent in people, unformed people, kids off the street sometimes. What did you look for?
My talent was looking at people and finding out where that magic was. And I felt everybody had it.
He had the blueprint, the resources, and a system that worked. All an artist had to do was follow his lead.
You believed at one time you could make a star.
Yes, of course.
He was now designated as the star maker.
However, as the fame came, so did the problems. Egos, bad advice, drug use, and other challenges, just to name a few.
Once a person signed with Motown and got hit, the vultures were out there, man. Everywhere you went, there were people saying, hey, I can do this for you. Now, you know, Berry may be doing this, but I can do this, and I can do so-and-so, and I can do that, you know, so, hey.
Mary Wells was among Motown's earliest stars, rising from poverty after signing with Berry Gordy at just 17 to help her struggling mother. As her fame grew, however, her husband, Herman Griffin, convinced her that Motown was exploiting her, while, unbeknownst to her, he was eyeing a bigger offer elsewhere.
As always, with our artist, many people were after her at that time. So somebody just made them an offer that they felt like they couldn't refuse, you know.
Wells left the label in 1964, only to discover that the problems she had hoped to escape existed elsewhere.
The reason why I left, it was just that I was having problems with the record company. And mainly I was young, you know. I thought that I was having problems, and I found out later that everybody had problems with record companies, you know.
Without Smokey Robinson's songwriting and support, her chart success quickly faded. In 1991, Wells sued Motown for unpaid royalties.
Claiming the company owed her money.
Mary Wells herself should be receiving her royalties, and the fact is that she isn't.
Motown countered with the argument that Mary had surrendered her royalties when she left in 1964.
Despite Motown insisting that she had signed away her rights to future royalties, the company eventually settled the lawsuit with a six-figure payment. The Holland-Dozier-Holland creative chemistry was unmatched, largely because the three complemented each other perfectly. Brian Holland was the rhythm instructor, Lamont Dozier focused on melody and arrangement, and Eddie Holland refined the lyrics and vocal delivery.
Between the three of them, individually they had a thing going musically, but together they had a stroke of magic.
Together, they were responsible for over 40 #1 hits during their peak. However, because they were responsible for over 75% of Motown's hits, they became convinced that they were the backbone of the label and deserved much more.
It's easy to make anybody feel that they deserve more than they're getting. We made $4 million last year. That was great. You should have made 10.
This led to a highly publicized lawsuit over royalty disputes, which resulted in the trio leaving the label to start their own company.
We lost 3 of our best writers at the peak of their success.
The Holland-Dozier-Holland decided to leave. I mean, they were getting advice from people saying that you could be making so much more money going out on your own.
They would soon find out that running a company was about more than just writing songs.
The grass always looks greener, you know. We decided that it was time that we moved on, or at least try it ourselves.
Raynoma Gordy Singleton was not only his wife, but also his co-founder.
You know, with a family trust and love and honesty, and so I was the one really pushing towards that, and I believed in him. I put all my trust in him, you know, because I had everybody else. Trust this guy, believe in him, faith and family.
She was there from the beginning, and in fact, was the one who located the modest 2-story house on West Grand Boulevard, the building that would later become known around the world as Hitsville, USA. But as the operations expanded, so did the strain on their relationship. Gordy offered her the opportunity to establish a company branch office in New York City, but due to the high cost of living, the funding provided proved insufficient. As a desperate measure, she arranged for the bootlegging of 5,000 copies of Mary Wells's Motown hit, My Guy, in an effort to keep the office afloat, something that angered Berry Gordy. As the company grew into a billion-dollar institution, Raynoma found herself increasingly pushed aside. When the company was finally sold in 1988, all she received was a plaque.
So I also talked about profit sharing, and I could see this dream being huge where everybody would share in it so that Mary Wells wouldn't have to end up in the condition that she is today, you know. But in the final analysis, Berry Gordy winds up with all the money, And I, being co-founder and the woman behind the man, have absolutely nothing.
The multi-talented Shorty Long, best known for his hit Here Comes the Judge, was a gifted artist who played multiple instruments, including piano, organ, drums, harmonica, and trumpet. He also worked as an MC for many Motown review shows and co-wrote several of his songs. In fact, he was one of the only Motown artists besides Smokey Robinson who was allowed to produce his own recordings in the 1960s. However, in an unfortunate turn of events, that bright, soulful spark was extinguished on June 29, 1969, when Long and a friend crashed their vessel while sailing down the Detroit River. In the wake of his passing, Motown issued Long's second and final album, The Prime of Shorty Long, serving as a fitting epitaph to one of the most promising artists to ever call the label home. He was only 29 years old. Motown wouldn't have been as huge as it became were it not for the Funk Brothers. They provided the driving beat behind the label's signature sound.
Let me tell you about the Funk Brothers. The Funk Brothers was like the backbone of Motown.
Detroit's Motown had a rhythm section and a rhythm sound that nobody could imitate.
However, because the label did not credit the musicians in the liner notes of its albums, they remained largely unrecognized and struggled with obscurity. The hard-partying drummer Benny Benjamin, nicknamed Papa Zita, battled drug and alcohol addiction throughout the late 1960s. On April 20th, 1969, he suffered a fatal stroke at the age of 43. While considered by many to be the greatest bassist to ever live, just like his friend Benny, the genius James Jamerson also turned to alcohol, which led to severe health problems.
But Jamerson shared another similarity to his percussionist counterpart Benny Benjamin, a self-destructive addiction to alcohol.
Toward the end of his life, as the gigs dried up, he spent time in hospitals and mental institutions.
He wasn't receiving the phone calls like before, working in the studio, to work in the studio. And there was a battle there, of emotions. And probably feeling less than a man, or less than a dad to provide for us from what he used to do before. So I seen a lot of hurt and pain, and the illness and the struggles with the alcohol wasn't going right for him.
On August 2nd, 1983, he passed away from complications related to cirrhosis, heart failure, and pneumonia. Adding insult to injury, his beloved Fender Precision bass was stolen shortly before his death. Another legend who struggled with obscurity was the genius songwriter Roger Penzabene, the genius behind a trilogy of hits for the Temptations, the mournful masterpiece I Wish It Would Rain, You're My Everything, and I Could Never Love Another After Loving You. Not to mention other hits with Gladys Knight and other Motown stars. Struggling to be recognized, Roger's troubles would go from bad to worse when his newly wedded wife began to cheat on him. On New Year's Eve, 1967, just 10 days after the release of I Wish It Would Rain, Roger allegedly self-deleted through a gunshot, putting an end to his troubled life. He was just 22 years old.
First, it's a very true story because Roger Penzabene wrote that song, and during 67 Christmas, he's supposed to join us at the Land Casino. And 2 days before New Year's, he took his life with a shotgun to the foot of his bed.
When Tammy Terrell teamed up with Marvin Gaye, she became one of Motown's most prized assets. With hits such as Ain't No Mountain High Enough and You're All I Need to Get By, the match made in musical heaven delivered some of the most iconic love songs of all time. However, at the height of her Motown career, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, discovered after she collapsed in Marvin Gaye's arms on stage. Undergoing 8 surgeries thereafter, she faded fast and died in 1970 at just 24. Her family barred everyone at Motown but Marvin Gaye from attending her funeral for failure to protect her in the hands of David Ruffin. But for the distraught Marvin Gaye, who even temporarily quit the business, there was more than met the eye.
Tammy's unfortunate death did really hurt you at the time, from what I understand. Is that why you took a vacation from recording for a while?
It didn't prompt my decision altogether, her death, but it certainly played a great influence on my decision to not perform publicly for a few years or record any records because I understood the bottom line of her death.
Known as the Prince of Motown after marrying into the Gordy dynasty, Marvin Gaye was a brilliant singer and songwriter whose music touched hearts across generations. He turned his voice into an aphrodisiac with Let's Get It On, captured the widespread anxieties of the Vietnam War in What's Going On, and championed environmental awareness in Mercy, Mercy Me. But the beauty he created stood in stark contrast to the turmoil in his personal life. His childhood was traumatic. His preacher father was strict and often abusive. Marvin's decision to leave the church and pursue what his father called the devil's music only deepened their rift. The death of his duet partner, Tammy Terrell, his divorce from Berry Gordy's sister, and frustrations with the Motown label sent him into a downward spiral. Struggling with financial troubles and paranoia, he believed people were after him. Tragically, just a day before his 45th birthday, he died in the hands of his father during an altercation at their home.
Soul singer Marvin Gaye, whose career spanned over 25 years, including the birth of the Motown sound to the 80s, was shot to death yesterday in Los Angeles.
69-year-old Marvin Gaye Sr. was taken to police headquarters in downtown Los Angeles last night after being booked on suspicion of murder in the death of his son.
Florence Ballard was the driving force behind the formation of the Supremes, originally called the Primettes.
Fabulous Supremes. How about it, eh?
Alongside Diana Ross and Mary Wilson, she helped catapult the group to international fame, making them Motown's most commercially successful act and the most successful American vocal group of all time, with 12 #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. However, beneath the glitz and glamour, Ballard's life was filled with heartache and betrayal. When Motown began favoring Diana Ross as the group's lead singer, Ballard turned to alcohol for comfort. She became rebellious, moody, and on July 1st, the day after her 24th birthday, when she showed up inebriated at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, refusing to abide to anything she was told, she was fired and replaced with Cindy Birdsong.
This particular incident at the Flamingo in Las Vegas, I had had me a few drinks, and they kept calling me fat so much until I went on stage and I poked my stomach out as far as I could, but I did my show.
I was aware that something dramatic had happened. Until the time, I didn't know which girl was even leaving. And I literally stepped into Florence's shoes 1 week later, after watching her on stage night by night. The second week, she was gone, and I was on stage.
What followed was a failed solo career, financial struggles, and a lawyer who allegedly embezzled her money, which left her in dire straits. She ended up on welfare, and her downfall became fodder for the tabloids.
The drinking that forced Florence out of the group has only worsened, and after an abortive attempt at a solo career, she winds up on welfare.
Just as it seemed she was getting her life back on track, she suffered cardiac arrest caused by a coronary thrombosis and passed away on February 22, 1976, at the age of 32.
On February 22, 1976, the torment ends. Florence is found dead of a heart attack. A devastated Diana flies to Detroit to attend the funeral.
In the famous Temptations' Fantastic Five, Paul Williams was the mastermind behind the group's choreography. The signature dance moves seen in the Temptations and even other Motown groups like the Supremes were his creations. He was a dedicated and disciplined young man, the only member who originally did not drink alcohol. However, everything changed when his health began to decline due to sickle cell anemia. As his condition worsened, his role in the group was reduced, leaving him frustrated. This pushed him down a path of self-destruction, and he began drinking heavily. His stamina and respiratory health deteriorated, making it impossible for him to perform. Eventually, he was forced to leave the group. 2 years later, Paul parked 2 blocks away from Motown and allegedly self-deleted following an altercation with his then-girlfriend. He was only 34 years old, and to this day, the circumstances surrounding his death fueled rumors of the Motown label being run by the mafia.
Probably the biggest misconception was the mob rumor.
The underworld. So does that mean that Berry and the people at his booking agency were controlled by the mafia or owned by the underworld?
No, you don't make it this long, this good, over this many years, being in organized crime or unorganized crime or any kind of crime. You're gonna get caught sooner or later. It ain't worth it.
David Ruffin's entrance into the Temptations helped propel the group to superstardom. From My Girl to Ain't Too Proud to Beg to I Wish It Would Rain, his raw, raspy tenor voice and electrifying stage presence made him unforgettable. However, as the group's success grew, so did his ego.
I used to work for Pop Gordy, Berry's father, and physically labor, I have built Motown with my hands. You know, his father was a contractor, and I lived with him and his mother.
Someone who was taken in by the Gordy family at his lowest was now untouchable.
I guess you heard about the limousine with the glasses. And everyone else was riding the station wagon, so I guess that wasn't too appropriate, but they could have rolled with me if they wanted to.
He started by refusing to ride on the bus with the other members, to missing important engagements due to his wild lifestyle and cocaine addiction. His goose was truly cooked when he reportedly wanted the group renamed David Ruffin and the Temptations, similar to the billings of Diana Ross and the Supremes, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and Martha and the Vandellas.
And when David told us it should be David Ruffin and the Temptations, we said, oh, no.
He was voted out of the group in 1968 and went on to have a mixed solo career, plagued by his drug addiction, which would be the cause of his demise.
In Philadelphia, police say former Temptation singer David Ruffin apparently visited a crack house in the hours before he died. Philadelphia police are searching for a friend of Ruffin's who drove him in a limo to the crack house and later dropped him off at a hospital shortly before he died Saturday morning. Police say a large sum of money in traveler's checks was missing from David Ruffin, though it's not clear if they were stolen or not. A Philadelphia TV station quoted a police source as saying that Ruffin had $30,000 with him when he went into a crack house.
According to his family, however, they're more than met the eye.
I just want to tell the world that my daddy was clean. Somebody set him up for that money, and somebody took his life.
And he said, if y'all do another autopsy, one of y'all will be laying right next to him. And we never did the second autopsy.
Eddie Kendrick's soaring falsetto was a defining element of the Temptations' golden years, leading hits like The Way You Do the Things You Do, Get Ready, and Just My Imagination, Running Away With Me. However, like David Ruffin, his conflicts with Motown's leadership led to his departure from the group. He struggled to regain success until he was diagnosed with lung cancer, likely caused by 30 years of smoking, which led to one of his lungs being removed in 1991. He succumbed to the disease on October 5, 1992, at the age of 52, just 1 year after losing his close friend David Ruffin.
Hollywood is also mourning the death of singer Eddie Kendrick. He died yesterday of lung cancer. Kendrick was 52.
As the Temptations transitioned from Smokey Robinson's romantic ballads to Norman Whitfield's psychedelic soul, one man proved to be exactly what the Temptations needed: the dynamic Dennis Edwards. Brought in to replace David Ruffin, he quickly established himself as the perfect addition to the group. However, like his predecessor, he eventually found himself at odds with the group's leadership, resulting in him being dismissed a record 3 times between 1977 and 1989. He struggled to find something meaningful outside Motown, blaming them for sabotaging his career.
This is very deep. I really believe Motown, or somebody in the industry, is holding me back.
Sometimes you got to send your foot soldiers out front, and some of them don't come back. The general doesn't want that to happen, but it happens.